Me and my husband, our little love, it seems to be dwindling down. We don't do the same stuff we do, the snuggling, the cuddling, the kissing in public. It just stopped. We don't do it. Well, then I get the news that my mother passes away. And all of a sudden, my husband just comes back to reality and he becomes that hunk of joy that I fell in love with again. Kisses, flowers, chocolates, you name it. He's bringing it to me. And then ultimately, I find out after a little bit of prodding why exactly he's being so nice. And this guy is such a son of a gun.
I never thought I'd be here, contemplating the end of my marriage. I'm Ava, and the last few months have made me question my absolute entire existence. I wish not even the worst human ever goes through what I've been through with Harry. Harry's my husband of 5 years. I met Harry during one of my adventurous trekking trips. Now, I'm stuck at a very difficult crossroad and I need help. I need your help to decide if my husband's actually a con man in the face of patience and fake love. When I met Harry some 6 to 7 years back, we hit it off immediately. We were both adventure lovers and we both came from broken families, and I think the two of the pillars are what attracted us. I always believed our love was strong enough to conquer any obstacle, but lately it feels as if our connection has grown weak. Strained by the weight of unspoken desires and unfulfilled dreams, we first met on a warm summer day. We struck up a conversation, effortlessly, and exchanged stories and laughter. And in the beginning, like any new couple, Harry and I were inseparable. We shared a love for nature, spending our weekends hiking through forest and camping under the starlit sky. Those moments surrounded by the wonders of nature were when we felt closest as if we were part of something greater than ourselves. You see, after dating for more than a year, we got married, and he proposed to me under the sky in the company of infinite stars, and I said yes. I had my reasons, and I wanted to get married as soon as I turned 25. I mean, that always was the plan, to get married at 25 and have 2 beautiful children by the time I turned 30. I was a freelancer in the creative field, and I earned enough to survive, but money, it never motivated me. Harry, on the other hand, was hardwired to become rich. He came from a poor family in Nigeria and had seen conditions worse than I could ever imagine. He worked as a lawyer and was in a very secure position in his career. I, on the other hand, was a product of a single mother. I never met my dad, and my mother had me in her late 20s, and she never made me feel the absence of a male figure in the house. She's everything to me, and I was lucky enough that my mother approved of Harry, and that way we got married in a low-key ceremony. No relatives, just a few friends and my mom. But as the years went by, the connection we once had began to fade. Our conversations became shallow, filled with forced smiles and awkward silences, and we stopped going out and the adventures died somewhere along the way. Harry was ambitious and he was getting restless when he could not earn as much as he wanted. Things started to ramble when he asked me to shift to full-time so we can buy a big house and a big car and, well, bigger everything. I was not okay. I felt pressured. I felt trapped. I tried seeking my mother's help, but she has not been doing great health-wise. So I did not want to give her any worries. Harry was not happy, and so was I. And the last ball dropped was when we discovered that we could not have children. It was a final blow to our crumbling relationship, and I've always envisioned a future filled with little ones running around, their laughter filling our home. But now, that dream seemed shattered, leaving behind a void that neither of us knew how to fill. I questioned why I'd fallen in love with Harry in the first place. What had drawn me to him? Was it simply the shared love for nature and children? Not having kids was never an option, and I wanted to solve this. I wanted a way out. I tried communicating with Harry to explore more options. For having children's, IVF, adoption, heck, we could even try surrogacy. But he blew my mind when he said, quote, "Those are very torturing and expensive options, Ava." Was he serious? Is he the man I love, or just a man who's frustrated at his workplace? I did not know what I was doing in life. It certainly was not like we had no money. We both were doing exceptionally well, but not according to Harry's expectations. I'm scared of even thinking this, but to you I confess, I'm considering the prospect of divorce. My heart's racing and my head is aching, but can I still find a reason to love him? After he has shown me that kind of thinking and future he envisions, this is not a mistake that I can let go. It's his choice, and a choice he made without considering me. It's more really about everybody for Harry. I try to fathom the fact that he realized the value of money at a very young age, but he always knew I wanted children. That was the reason we got married, because I found a like-minded man who loves to adventure, who believes in becoming parents, and now both the reasons just seem to vanish into thin air. Well, I received a phone call while sitting in our empty living room, consumed by my thoughts, and I never imagined that one phone call could change your life forever. When it seems in movies and read about it in books, but you never exactly realize how powerful that one death call can be. It was from the officer who discovered my mother dead on the floor of her home. The world seemed to shift around me, and I felt a wave of dizziness wash over me as the room swirled. Everything changed, and when I opened my eyes, the walls had changed from their usual pale blue to a deep, mysterious violet. I realized I was on a hospital bed. I quickly rushed up and asked Harry about my mother, but she's gone. My mother is dead. Update number 1. What do you do when you first learn that the only person you know who's larger than life has died? What's your reaction? My brain had no idea, but my body did, and as a result, it crumbled in shock. 3 days ago, in the dead of night, my phone rang with a terrible fate to deliver. My mother was no longer with us. After seeing her face down on the floor, a neighbor who checks on her on a regular basis dialed emergency. Then the supervisor called me, and my head detached from my body as soon as I heard the word death. Refusing to believe the magnitude of reality, I woke up in the morning, and, well, my body required 3 days to rest and recover from what I heard. I tried to leave the room to find Harry, but I couldn't find him. I tried calling him, but there was no answer, and I've never been more disappointed in him, not even asking when he put money ahead of our children. So I asked the nurse where my mother is, and she replies, "Your husband asked us to keep her in the mortuary so you can be present for the ceremony when you wake up." At the very least, he retains basic decency, I guess. I tried calling him again when I heard him talking to the nurse outside the room about how I was doing. He came in, hugged me, and I was taken aback. He was concerned about my well-being. He cradled me in his arms and began to sob. I forgot what I was going through for a moment, and when I started crying in this moment of crisis, I felt as if I had rediscovered my husband. When I asked where he was, he said he was arranging the best flowers and casket possible. I was feeling much better, and the funeral had been scheduled for the evening, so we went home and began preparing for the most difficult day of my life. Something in my heart moved when we arrived, and Harry had created such a lovely and touching arrangement. My heart's hard ice wall could have shattered. There was the man I fell in love with and had married, and we bid my mother farewell. She appeared radiant and at ease, and after surviving the day, Harry held my hand and apologized as we drove back home. I immediately burst into tears. There was so much clinging in my heart that it had to come out. Everything that had been going on had been extremely stressful. I was about to leave my husband and in return go to my mother just a few hours ago. Wow. But now I believe I can give him a second chance, but I'm not still sure. But the biggest difference is that I no longer have a mother to return to. My mom never mentioned my father, and I have no idea who he is or whether he's even still alive. I used to fight a lot with my mom and found out when I was younger, but as time passed I realized I never needed him. My mother was the best person in the world. Harry had cleaned the house, and it was warm and cozy when we arrived. I was tired of noticing anything else and wanted to sleep. I was physically and mentally exhausted, and I guess when you're grieving for your heart, you don't get much sleep. Everything was going on in my head, and at the same time, I had no idea it was already 6 o'clock in the morning. I gave up on sleep and got up to make some coffee. Harry was dozing off on the couch, and I understand that grief can change people, but I've been watching our relationship deteriorate for the past 5 years. So, does grief have an immediate impact on people? I'm not sure, but I will find out soon enough. When Harry awoke, he approached me, kissed my forehead, and sat with his head on my lap, and began complaining about everything he had done wrong. Perhaps a few tears rolled down his cheeks as well, but one thing he said stuck with me. "You're not alone, Ava. I lost my mother as well. We'll get through this together." His words meant everything to me, but for so many months, the only feeling I had was loneliness. We had to go to my mother's house to clear some things out the property and lock the door, and before we make any long-term decisions, I hugged him. And it did not feel the same for some reason. Harry was my rock, the person I turned to when things got tough, and his warm embrace could fix anything, but something changed that day. It felt strange. Nobody ever tells you that death is difficult, but the time after death is even more difficult. You see, when the person is only remembered in your mind, I just discovered a box full of photographs while going through her wardrobe. It went all the way back to when my mother was in college. When I discovered the pictures of my father, my hands began to tremble. It's a photo of their wedding, and he's extremely attractive. I scratched her room upside down like a mad woman, looking for anything related to him. Any other image, name, address, information. I'd never asked for my father after I grew up, and I never intended to find a father who never tried to find me. However, when you lose somebody close to you, your brain reacts in an unusual way. I suddenly felt compelled to meet the person who had assisted in my creation. When Harry walked in, my natural instinct was to hide the picture in my purse. I'm not sure why. He gave me a look, and I'm not sure why I made the room look like a tornado had hit it. I didn't have any answers. I just smiled with a broken heart, and he did not ask any questions. We left once we had everything we needed, and in my purse was a picture of my father. When we returned home, Harry asked what I wanted for dinner, and that was less shocking than what followed. "Ava, can we talk about adoption whenever you're ready?" Those words left his mouth, and those words rang like a church bell in my ears. Is this what I'm hearing? Is Harry so affected by my mother's pain because he loves her so much? Was my husband actually stressed about work? And is he not the horrible person I made him out to be? I smiled and requested my favorite. "Chicken, please." Harry got right to work. Perhaps all we needed was some time and a bad incident to realize our love and connection for each other. Maybe we still have love left somewhere, and maybe things will get better as time does. Maybe it's magic. Just maybe. Update number 2. This is the final update by OP. My mother's been gone for over a week, and the last few days have caused me to reconsider my relationship with Harry. Maybe I was the impatient one who could not see his husband's distress all along. So, what if he had big dreams? Yeah, the pressure he put on to work harder and his refusal to discuss any other means of having a baby were completely unjustified, but it could just be a side effect of his sense of failure, after all. His childhood demons are his excessive desires to become wealthy, and I promised to be there for him in every difficulty when we married. I believed I could learn to love him. He's been such a gentleman. He loves me like he's never loved me before. We even visit a few adoption agencies, and I could not be happier with the marriage now. We were asked to submit a few documents to the adoption agency, and I just decided to hand-deliver them because Harry was at work. I was looking for our house's original documents when I came across a box tucked away in the wardrobe. Well, he appeared to be attempting to conceal the box, which was buried deep, and I discovered a file and my name on it, and I rummaged through the contents of the box. Curiosity piqued, and I unfolded it. My heart skipped a beat as I discovered that Harry had hidden something from me. My hands actually shook as I read words on the page revealing the truth that shattered my life's illusions. It turned out that my mother had been wed to one of the wealthiest men in the area. We all knew from the news and articles that appear from time to time. Then it dawned on me that he was no longer alive. Last year, he was killed in a car accident, and I dashed to get the picture I'd stashed in my purse. Yes, it's a much younger and more attractive version of what we've seen so far. I was sweating profusely and worried about what was going on. So my father's a multimillionaire, huh? And he's no longer alive, and he left everything for my mother and me. But since my mother died, has it been passed down to me? I need to sit down and think about why Harry would hide this, and what was my mother hoping I would find out of it. I'm hoping this is some strange coping dream as a result of everything that's happened so far, and I'll soon wake up and discover that none of this is true. I locked myself in the bedroom with the photograph and the will papers. I looked up everything I could about this mysterious billionaire on the internet. His gruesome death has even been photographed. He was a bachelor. According to Wikipedia, there's no spouse and no children, and a multi-million, well, should I say billion-dollar fortune. There's numerous reports of him giving away his fortune to a secret lover. Some claim he gave away all his wealth because he was an active social worker. I looked up at his last known addresses and I discovered it. In today's world, celebrities have no privacy. That was beneficial to me, though. I just wanted to make sure this was true and maybe even see where my father lived. So, I arrived at the house, which is a beautiful mansion with a garden larger than the average garden in my society. I was greeted immediately by a man in his mid-40s, who appeared to be some kind of sharp businessman. He introduced himself as a private secretary named Mr. William to my father. I had no idea what I would say to people who asked why I was there and what I wanted, but much to my surprise, he did not ask. He greeted me and led me straight to the study. When we were inside, he called me a butler and said, "Ava, would you like some coffee?" I nodded and gave him a blank expression. "How do you know my name?" He told me to sit down and went to get some albums. Photographs of myself, and I have a lot of pictures of myself from the day I was born to the day my mother died. "Your father loved you," William said, and I slipped a little, from the chair, not realizing I was crying until a tear fell on my wrist. Was he aware of my existence? Why did he not contact me? Did he adore his mother? I had a lot of questions and nobody to answer them. William appeared to be a nice guy. He consoled me and told me a story that helped me cope with the gravity of the situation. My parents fell in love when they were young, and we see couples do stupid things out of love all the time, so they got married after only a month of dating, and they never had the courage to tell or meet each other's families. So nobody knew about their marriage for the first 6 months. My mother then became pregnant and my father was unprepared. Even my mother, I'm sure, felt unprepared at the time, but do mothers really have a choice? So, she kept the child. She did. My parents' marriage failed because, like Harry, my father had lofty goals. Big money ambitions, you know. Well, she had to leave him in order to have me, and leaving behind a life of love for a chance at motherhood, my mother made my father promise not to cast a shadow on me before we left. So she won't be hurt while raising me, and she did not want me to know that my father wished I did not exist. And my father agreed and pursued his dreams. He did achieve his goals, and by the end he was a millionaire, but despite his wealth and power, he yearned for warmth of family. So there's more to the story than this. William revealed that my father, the man I've known as my father, spent his days regretting his decision. He yearned to see my mother again to make amends, but fate had kept them apart, and in order to shield me from the complexities of her past, my mother kept this secret hidden until her final breath. The weight of this reality pressed against my chest, leaving me breathless. My mind was flooded with questions, threatening to drown me in uncertainty, and I just asked William why I was the one who would inherit everything. Why? And when they did find out my mother had died, The next thing he said scared the living daylights out of me. My mother was in constant contact with my dad throughout her life. She initially despised his decision to leave and not have a family, but even after she sensed his guilt, she kept me away because the man was in the spotlight. She desired that I have a normal childhood and wished no questions on me or on my life. He was killed in a car accident just a few months before my mother followed him. They were madly in love. I could feel it. However, fate had a reality and, well, it's really twisted. Things don't always go as planned. He left everything for my mother, and after my mother died, William contacted me, but I was in the hospital and half dead. So he approached Harry. Was Harry aware of the inheritance? Was he pretending to love me all this time, just waiting for the chance to get the money? My mind spun into a whirlwind of doubt. Shaky as the foundation of our marriage, this was a lot to take in. I had all this money that could solve our marital problems, and then I was manipulated into thinking Harry changed. He just found out about my inheritance and was playing the card of a good husband, huh? Confusion and anger started gathering within me, forming a storm. I went back home and confronted Harry with all the papers and hope in my eyes, looking for the truth and a glimmer of sincerity in the eyes. But he could not even look straight into my face. His words stumbled and fell flat, and I could see through his vague attempts to conceal the truth, and with each hollow explanation, my heart sank deeper into the depths of betrayal. I loved this man and gave him my entire life. This is how he treats me. Well, he explained that hiding the will documents was out of concern for me. I was already shocked and heard enough about my mother's death. He did not want my father out yet. This was a lot of information, disturbing information from a human to grasp in a few days, and he's right about it. But how can I trust this man now? For as long as 2 to 3 years, all he cared about was money. And suddenly, after my mom passed away, he was ready to let everything just go and love me for me. Is this even possible? I feel broken. And the first thing I did was move back into my mother's house. I needed space to process my life, to take the right decision and heal, and I left Harry with no future promises. I asked him to focus on his work, and whatever I decided to do, well, not keep his hope up. But I don't want to do. I need your help. What do I do? Is it possible for pain and loss to change people? But the circumstances do not allow me to believe him easily. Did he intentionally hide the inheritance and my father's identity just to keep our marriage afloat and live a luxurious life? Or was he actually being thoughtful? Also, my mother never introduced me to my father. Was it because she did not want me to live the life my father did? Should I even accept the inheritance? What would each one of you have done if you were in my shoes? There's a lot I have to figure out, but one thing is certain. I'm going to go ahead with the adoption agencies. I'll never let the chance of becoming a mother pass by. And just like my mother got strength, maybe someday I'll figure out a life along with my child.
So, I just have one question for you guys. Harry, do you think that Harry was just doing this solely because of the money? And like OP said, their relationship seemed to fizzle out a while ago. Then all of a sudden all this joy came and Harry was so happy to be, well, back to the relationship again. So I'm just asking you guys. We know at the end of the story, OP moved back into her late mother's house, and she's still just pondering what to do about Harry. So drop your thoughts down below in the comment section. Let's talk about them. I hope you guys enjoyed today's content. If you did, it's easy to support me. All you have to do is hit that subscribe button. Thank you so much for that. I deeply appreciate it. Guys, we'll be back tomorrow with an even bigger, you won't believe how many updates this next story coming up tomorrow has. I can't wait for it. It's an amazing story. I'll see you then. Have a fantastic day.